at like our Christmas, we call them Eid, festivities a couple of years ago, and people got upset. They didn't like this picture. Do you know why? People wrote into the Tulsa World because it was smiling happy Muslims. And so, we have another concern here. Okay, this is an advertising piece that the Council of American Islamic Relations does. Which one's Muslim? Well, they're all Muslim. It helps break down some of the stereotypes we have of who Muslims are. This is what you don't see often on the media, which we encourage the media to print, and sometimes they do. Does this guy look like a Muslim? Huh? This is my husband. He's a Muslim. Okay. One other thing. Verses that we hear in the media continually taken out of context to frighten the public. This can be done in the Bible too. I could point out verses if I wanted to scare you all about Christians. But I know that Christians are not that way. Slay them wherever you find them and seize them and lie in wait for them in every stratagem of war. Okay, the reason it's taken out of context is because these verses were revealed by God in a specific situation after the Muslims had been persecuted for over 13 years. They had not fought the entire first 13 years of Islam. The pagans at that time, who were the idol worshippers, had killed them, they'd starved them, and finally they immigrated and they left Mecca and they immigrated to another city called Medina, and then the pagans were coming after them. And God said, you have the permission, you have my permission to go ahead and fight these people in war. That doesn't mean go out and just kill, pagans nowadays. But that's what people are led to believe on the radio. Okay, this one gets me too, because we are encouraged to have Christians and Jews as our friends and to be very good neighbors with them and to converse with them in the best type of discussion. In other words, don't have any heated debates, anything like that, but always be kind and courteous to others. So it says, do not take the Christians and Jews as your protecting friends. Once again, this is in a situation of war where the Muslims had gone to, made their their migration to Medina, and they had actually signed treaties with the Jews to pair up in protecting the city from the pagans who were coming. And also another group of the Muslims were still in current day, I think it was Abyssinia, under the protection of a Christian king who they had made an agreement with. So anyway, it just said don't take the Christians and the Jews at this specific time to protect you. They're not necessarily going to fight this battle with you is the message. So they were encouraged to pull their own resources together. Islam, believe it or not, forbids forced conversion. There is no compulsion in religion. In other words, you can't force somebody to become Muslim. That's very un-Islamic, that people have to make that decision in their hearts. Okay, now the impact of what we're seeing from the media is nowadays guilt by association, and I'll prove this here in just a minute by telling you what's happening here in Tulsa. Hate incidences are increasing. Obviously, I'm on a daily email thing from the Council of American Islamic Relations. I get their statements every day about who's being attacked, which mosques are being burned in the United States, who's been killed, and we're seeing now that this theme of that the war on terror is a war on Islam, and in reality it is not a war on Islam. It is a war against a few radical, misaligned people who call themselves Muslims that we are absolutely disgusted with, that are taking away the beauty of our religion. Locally, I have two sets of friends that have been chased in their cars, and chased for long periods of time, and finally they pull over into a quick trip and somebody comes and saves them and helps them and everything. We had to call the police, and we've had physical attacks. I have another friend who works for the Tulsa World. She wears a headscarf. She had her car rammed in the Walmart parking lot. They yelled at her and told her to go back home. She's an African-American Muslim who's been here for over 300 years. Racial slurs and hate speech are pretty common. Everybody's got a story from the Islamic community that they can tell you. We've had some deaths. We had a Muslim woman that was pushing her baby in a stroller in California a couple weeks back in December, that she was shot in the neighborhood walking her baby. And ironically, We've had many Sikhs. Now, Sikhs are not Muslims, but many Sikhs in the United States have been shot at or stabbed because people think they're Muslim. I have a friend whose children at school has been denied friends just because they're Muslim. And we've had open houses. We do it every summer at our mosque here in town, and we encourage non-Muslims to come to ask questions. You know, we want to talk about all these issues and alleviate fears that people are having and tell them how we really feel. And unfortunately, some people are scared to come to the mosque, but when we do have them this coming summer, please look in the paper, and you're more than welcome to come. Workplace discrimination is on the increase, and then of course vandalism and arson. There have been a lot of mosques across the country that have been set on fire. Have you guys heard about this at all? No, it's usually not on mainstream media. Okay, so to wrap up, a couple of things. I'm very concerned, and I think you all should be concerned as American citizens, because while it's Muslims today, it's somebody else tomorrow. Indefinite detention is now allowed, and we've seen it. Charities are guilty without evidence or legal explanation to support the seizures. The loss of habeas corpus, which is like the diamond of our constitutional rights. The right to torture, and then these detention camps that they're building. I want to ask you all the question, what do you call a government where the executive branch executes the law? I think we all know the answer to the question, but for some reason we're heading in this direction, and I find it very scary as an American citizen and as a Muslim. Last point. Muslims from around the world have denounced and condemned violence and acts of terror repeatedly at the tops of our voices. You can also see the AmericanMuslim.com or .org, I believe it's .com. The fact that terrorists are hijacking our religion and the American media has chosen not to air our statements hurts us all. And at this point, I'd like to encourage any questions that you all may have, and I appreciate you all taking the time to sit here and listen to my presentation.
That there was something mentally wrong with Martin Moussaoui, Zacharias Moussaoui, that was the only one that was the only Muslim that was convicted in the United States, was there?
I don't know. I have not read up a lot on that. I do know that Jose Padilla,
okay,
does now have some mental problems due to his, I think it was 2002, 5-year incarceration. He is so confused now, and he's been interrogated so many times that his lawyers, he thinks, are the interrogators. So he's not there anymore, and his lawyers were complaining about that they cannot adequately represent him anymore because of this mental illness that has developed. Yes?
I noticed that, and you didn't comment on it, because I was following closely what you were saying with what was on the screen. You mentioned hateful radio and TV talk shows.
Yeah, nationally and locally.
Can you name names? I mean, of who it was, like Bill O'Reilly or some other idiot?
I won't name names, but I'll direct you in the right direction.
Okay.
There is an AM 1170. I didn't say that. Radio station here in town that has an agenda of hate and discrimination towards many people in our community. Now, I want you to think about hate or discrimination for just a moment, because I learned after September 11th there's two types of people. There's those who have peaceful intention and who want to build bridges within our community and have peaceful coexistence, and there's those that don't. And I believe that local radio station is very divisive and doesn't help Tulsa or Tulsans. It hurts our community, and it creates hate.
I highly recommend NPR to everybody.
Yeah, I like National Public Radio.
What was it about the Quran that made you want to convert?
I like the authenticity of the book, the lack of error, the strong evidence of science. There's a lot of science in the Quran. It was just recently discovered within the last 100 years of proven. and the message of believing just in God, and each individual in this world is personally accountable for their good and bad deeds, and you have to work hard to get to heaven. It's not an easy trip. Yes?
How come you don't mention the root majority of the world? Not one person.
From Adam? Or are you talking about Abraham?
I am talking about
Abraham. Normally, if I were giving you a presentation on the basics of Islam, I would cover that in my presentation. But this is more of one of my civil rights advocacy type presentations. But yeah, Christians, Muslims, and Jews all come from Abraham. Thank you for pointing that out. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you. And please forgive me if I've offended you in any way.